Last year, I made almost $500,000 while still consulting other businesses. And the truth is, most people have the skills to do the same, but they're just stuck building somebody else's company. What if instead of spending long hours growing somebody else's businesses, you use those same skills to build your own six-figure business? That's exactly what we're gonna break down today. This is part one of an exclusive event where I brought together a bunch of professionals, some who were ready to make the leap into consulting and some who already were. So stick with me because you're about to discover how the remote closer model works and why it's the only method to build a business in 2025. We're also going to talk about the direct funnel strategy that brings in clients on demand and also some real life stories from sales professionals like Fatih or Desmond who made the shift and are now landing deals bigger than ever working for themselves. And you might be thinking, well, how do I actually start any of this? Don't worry, we'll be covering that too. This isn't just theory. You're gonna walk away with practical, actionable steps to land your own high-ticket clients and build your own consulting business, starting today. Let's dive in. So, just as kind of a brief intro, quick show of hands. How many of you are familiar with me and kind of my ecosystem? Quick show of hands. Okay, and then how many are brand new? First intro, crash course, everything. Okay, cool. So just a 10,000 foot overview, I'll run through my story briefly. So January 18th of 2023 was a pretty pinnacle day. I put a post on my Instagram story. I was in negotiations for my first, not my first, but one of my larger sales consulting deals. This was a contract for $200K with an industrial equipment manufacturing company. I put a poll in my story, or post in my story, just saying, hey, I kind of want to show people how to do this because I had people asking me about it. But not only was that contract so special, we closed that on February 15th, but this was the first time in 2020, at the top of 2024, that I'd finally cracked this whole sales consulting model without sales calls. So just being a high-level operator, executor, not having to speak on the phone to anybody. And this was kind of the first breaking point for any of you who have been in sales. To a man with a hammer, everything looks like a nail. So it's when in doubt, hop on the phones and just do what we do best. And so it was a pretty cool time. Now, after signing that client, I proceeded to sign 4 others that I was working with. So one of them was a real estate lead generation agency. Another one was a direct mail marketing company that was doing 800,000 to $1 million a month. So they did paper flyers to people that own homes. One of them was an info product offer that was in the high ticket coaching consulting. Another one was a women's fitness coaching offer. And it was pretty sweet. I have a graphic here of my calendar, but I was blessed to have pretty much 2 whole days during the week that I could just do content and my own thing. I didn't have to do sales calls, the whole inbound. And so I'd finally gotten it right, but it didn't used to always be this way. 2023, the year prior, my life up until that point, I had just been a remote closer. So I had bought the, I drank the high ticket Kool-Aid, I bought the program, was promised the dream, and came into it. And yeah, it was good, but I had done pretty much everything from cold calling to setting to closing, worked my way similar to Sebastian to being top producer for an offer. That was really fun and great. But as you guys know, kind of in this remote space, it can be pretty fickle. It can be pretty boom and bust. And so I had my wits about me. Consistency was something in my income was something that I was always kind of looking for. And I had seen it for glimpses before something would break or the leads would dry up. And so biggest thing is that I really just trusted nobody. So I was the hardened closer to some extent. And I thought my way out of that would be to sales management, into high ticket sales management. And so I progressed into actually finding a management offer. There was an info scaling agency similar to something that Oz had done where they had 6 different client accounts and I was on top of 6 of them. And it was nice to not have to be on sales calls, but it came with a pretty big catch. And that was that this was an overseas sales agency. So they were based over in Australia. I was in Austin, Texas at the time. So that means that I was working a good 3 p.m. to 2 a.m. But that's high ticket for you, for those of you guys, when the offers are good, you make the sacrifices to be part of them. And so in that, I had a little bit of time left during the day. And as I talked about, to the man with a hammer, everything looks like a nail. So I picked up another closing gig. And I thought that this was kind of the next progression to the career. So sales manager at night, closer during the day. I was making around roughly 10,000 a month. Some months were over, some months were under. It was never perfectly consistent. And I was really doing all that I could with the skills that I had. And here's a brief screenshot. It was a lot as far as the work schedule goes. I showed up to a team meeting and I thought that I was really happy and approachable. I thought this was me thinking oh yeah, this is a good day today. That was my face that I screenshotted from a team meeting I was taking during the day. And so I didn't really realize how much of an impact that actually doing all of this was starting to have on me. But truly, I had just given away all of my time. I was just a slave to the machine. It was calls during the day, management at night, just management, trying to make the money and making all that I could. And that's when an opportunity had presented itself, which, in the high ticket world, I found that it never really comes when you want it, just kind of finds its way to you. Someone messages you, hey bro, I got an offer that we're hiring. And so you say yes, you find your way into it, and then one thing leads to another. And so there's this company, Deal.ai. Someone had caught wind of my skills because I had a background in mergers and acquisitions. That's where I did my cold calling originally. And they were selling something I knew how to sell, and they really wanted me to work with them. But when you're a high ticket closer and the cash is flowing, it's like you don't really leave that until the cash stops flowing. So you wait for either something to happen, the leads break, you get burned, management gets bad, and then you bounce. And so I really trusted nobody. I'd been burned before, I had my bills to pay, and so I'd finally found some stability working, the same hours that I was. So I just continued to offer value to them. They just kept meeting with me and asking me questions, and I was answering things, just not really no intention to try to become part of it. And they actually grew curious enough where the founder took an interest to fly me out. He was like, what are you doing? I remember very distinctly, they were pinging back and forth over WhatsApp. I'd met with the manager, and then I got invited to a WhatsApp chat with Alex Mayer, who's the founder. And for those of you guys who don't know, this is some guy that's worth a couple $100 million. And so I, once more, just similar to you guys, just in high ticket, was just kind of doing my thing. I'd not really knew what I was getting into. I get added to this chat, I get put in a 4-way call, and he's like, what are you doing on Friday? And I'd said, I don't know, just a normal day, just taking calls. Cool, you should come to Vegas. I'm bringing the whole team to Vegas. And I was like, sure. And I'm thinking I'm gonna have to pay for my ticket for this whole thing. If you can come, our team will fly you out, put it on the company. I wanna meet you. So I said, sure. I said, yes, sir. I didn't quite know what to expect. And so they bought me, JSX? I don't know if you guys know what JSX is. It's like a semi-private jet charter. It's not like fully private. So once more, it's just my first introduction to this whole world. And so I remember being completely blown away, kind of seeing like real money like this. So I get a receipt for, I get an email, hey, your JSX has been booked. They shuttled me there. They shuttled me from there to the hotel. And that's when it came. I met with them in person, got to meet Alex. It was kind of a very behind the scenes thing, getting to see him and the team. And they made me an offer that I just couldn't refuse. I remember after we had dinner, I told this story once before, but I don't know, I just wanted to make a good first impression. That's something we kind of talk about. The impressions that you make on people is really important. And so they had flown me out there, and so we'd had this dinner. It was probably like 6, 7 people, and we're in Vegas, mind you. And I just had kind of snuck off to go to the bathroom, and I handed the waiter my card, and I said, hey, for our meal, can you just put it on my card? And I didn't know what it was going to come out to. I just knew it was going to be a big bill, but they paid for me to be out there, and I figured, well, let's just kind of see where this goes. And so after I paid for that dinner, he brought me out in front, and he's like, look, what do you need from me to become part of the team? And I'd said, I don't know. He's like, okay, go to your hotel room. I'm going to talk with my team, and we're going to make you an offer. So I said, okay, sure. And that's when it came. I was in a phone call in this hotel room that they had paid for. It was a big suite, probably as big as this. Once more, I didn't really know what I'd stepped into. And they offered me $10,000 a month plus $5,000 to walk away from everything that I was doing and 10% of cash on everything that I closed to stop what I was doing and become part of what that was. And that was like I guess that there's something to this. And so that was kind of the beginning of a new end. But it was total chaos. So as far as working with that company, I had just signed this offer and agreement in this hotel room, and I now had to offboard from a sales agency that was from 3 o'clock to 2 a.m. and figure out how to offboard my calls from the offer that I was on. So I was effectively on 3 offers trying to get off 2 and get into 1, and it was just chaos. And then this business was still trying to figure out what they were doing, and they had money to spend. So they asked me if I could take calls. I think this was on a Friday. It was Friday, Saturday, accepted the offer. They kept me there till Sunday, and I opened up my calendar, and they just immediately started putting call bookings on my calendar. I hadn't figured the whole no sales call thing, but I did figure out how to get paid for it, which was great. I didn't structure the deal properly, as I was saying. I was taking sales calls, and so just like that, I don't know if any of you guys know what this looks like, to have just a belt-fed inbound calendar. They were $4,000 a day they were really riding a ton of the success on me. And so it was great. I really liked it, and I was able to make some money with it, but this is not really what I wanted to be doing forever. That's why I picked up the sales management, is there has to be an end to this whole sales call thing. Slowly things calmed, and I managed to work my way out of just doing the sales calls into some management, and with some extra time. During that period, I'd moved here to Medellin towards midway through 2023. It's when I found my way to the city, and then things kind of calmed to a point where I had a little bit of space to take on other clients. And so I figured, well, maybe there's something to this. If I just kind of network and build goodwill, maybe more things will come to me. And this was before. We have a full protocol on this now in the program now to teach this strategically. But just kind of started doing more things. And sure enough, consulting.com, I don't know if you know any of them, but I was able to partner and get signed with consulting.com as a client. Their sister company, Flow Research Collective, I got signed and partnered to them. Large YouTuber influencer Hamza Ahmed, 2.6 million subscribers at the time, managed to get partnered with him as well. And so figured out some sort of code here to partnering with these large guys and getting these fixed fees and retainers. But the best part was the money was just incredible, more than what I'd seen as a closer. And so August was around the time I started with Deal. That month I was able to take home 20K. September it got to 35,400. October was 34,177. November was 53,096, and then December was 51,400. And so I was like, this was money that I'd not seen when I was closing. I'm sure it's possible in offers. I had just not really seen that without being a slave to the machine. And so it was great. But I still didn't know what I was doing. Like, I just figured out the sales piece. I was a sales guy. I hadn't really figured out the whole fulfillment end of it. And so everything, this whole consulting model and how you operate, which we'll talk about today, wasn't really cracked and pioneered. I was good at selling. I knew how to get these deals and contracts over the line. For those of you guys who are in the program, it's that most of the time. You can sell them and get them over, and once they're on the other side, that's where the real work begins. And by the time I kind of figured out that I didn't really know what I was doing, everything came crashing down. So that December was the last time I'd seen that kind of money. I had one client for 4,400 that stayed. Everybody else churned. Even Deal that flew me out to Vegas churned. So come to 2024, it was, well, if I've done it once, let's see if we can do it again. And as I started the top of the story, I did. And so I'd kind of realized this whole concept that when you have more skills, you make more money. And that's what I really want to focus on today, is making sure that we can impart as much value so everybody can develop the skills to continue to make more. I learned a lot. I promised myself in 2024 I would do it right, and I did. I got 5 new clients, was able to get my income back up, and no sales calls this time around, which was way more sustainable. And so, yeah, once more, I had a really good calendar and everything was really nice. And I started to have people asking me how I was doing it. And that's around April, after I got my clients back up, around April 2nd is when I was like, well, maybe there's something to this. Why don't I try the whole info song and dance? Maybe program would be some nice money. And so I released it to a couple friends before I actually shipped it out big. There was a student, Chase, or not a student, but he's someone that had been taking sales mentorship from me. Complete beginner, had only ever been a closer for a year. I'd worked with him from when he was a setter to becoming a closer to then jumping into consulting. And then we had another member of ours, Jack, or a close colleague of mine, who had been a sales manager, expert closer for sort of 2 years, brought him into this as well. Was able to get them set up with clients. Both of them kind of came my first 2 success stories. Chase was able to make $15,000 a month, but that's AUD, so you bring that to USD, that's like 9,000 or whatnot. He was still closing at the time too, so his client was probably doubling what his income was as a closer while still managing both. And then Jack just kind of soared right out the gate. He got a 10K a month client, well, 7K a month client that upsold into 10, straight away. And so he was just kind of cooking with that, no sales calls needed. And so then after that, the Google Docs and everything that I had came together a little bit more. I launched it to the public. I had some ads that I had made. Some of you might maybe have seen these on Instagram, but they've gone pretty viral. There's a bunch of people sharing them and kind of talking about other people and that I can do it too. And not only that, but all those of you guys that took the bet to join the program, just the results were incredible in being able to teach it. And so we had Darren, a member that I got to meet here in Medellin, got himself to over $13,000 a month. Andrea, $12,500 a month. Tanner got his first client for $2,500 a month with 1,000 setup. Jack with a 7K month client over to 10. Daryl, 5K month client. Bob got a 5K. Desmond, who's here, 6.5. June, any of you guys know June off of Facebook? Yeah. So we were part of June's whole launch. June actually met me here in Medellin when he joined the program. We were part of his whole getting his community off the ground, his first content. His goal was to get to $30,000 a month, 5 months from 0 to 30K with a mix of consulting and a bunch of other things. And a ton of other success stories, Chase, Larry, Lucas, Fathi, Mikhail, Dakota, Sean, Shanka. And yeah, that's what's bred sales consulting, which is why we are here today. And so with that, we've got a couple things to go through, but that's kind of the 10,000 foot overview of how it works. And so I had no idea. I didn't have a me when I was getting into it. And so I create this really to kind of give back to when I was just a closer and I didn't really know how you escape the whole sales call thing. So yeah, quick show of hands for today. Who has an interest in learning content? Cool. And then who has an interest in learning ads? Okay, excellent. We'll be covering both of those. So before that, any questions on kind of like my story or things that I've covered today? Okay, sweet. So question for you guys. Who wants to know what makes our consulting model special? Excellent. So this is, I think, one of the pieces that a lot of people get caught up on is like, what's the difference between a sales consultant, a growth partner, a growth operator, growth consultant? It all kind of blends together. There's really 2 core things that we focus on with like our sales consulting model. The first one is the sales like conversion process, the actual model that we use. Yeah, so the first one is the funnel strategy, which I call the direct funnel, which you may have heard this name before, and I'll draw out what that looks like. And the second one is going to be the RCM, which is the remote closer model. So how many of you, well, most of you, how many of you have just done remote closing? Yeah, cool, handful of you. So the remote closer model is this whole setter-closer dynamic. Believe it or not, like we're very familiar and comfortable with it because we're from the world of info. Most of the broad business industry does not understand how to do setters to closers effectively or at all. And if they do, they rarely do it effectively. And beyond that, remote closers at the bottom of like the whole conversion like funnel piece where we're taking the calls, we're calling the inbound leads. On top of that is what I call the direct funnel, which is how we actually get traffic and people to our offer and ideas. This is something that most businesses don't know either. I think a prime example of this is Fathi and the client that you have. They are a company that constructs or they manufacture steel homes. For those of you guys who've heard about the hurricanes that happened in Florida, a bunch of houses got destroyed. If you had a wood home in Florida, well, water ruins wood, and so they make steel homes because water is a little bit more, steel's a bit stronger to water. This is a company that has a product, but they have no idea exactly how to get customers to it. They think in a very conventional sense where, well, we'll just hire a marketing agency, we'll get leads, and we'll just kind of sling it all together and put a salesperson in there. And have any of you worked for an offer, an operation where it's like that? There's no order to all of this. It's just leads kind of getting thrown in. Yeah, so this whole like a funnel and having an actual structure is pretty nice to have. And so this is really what sets us apart as consultants is we're trying to specialize in taking businesses and adding a specific funnel to it to get people in with a right level of intent to get them through to closers. And so Fathi is one that I've been working with pretty closely here in Medellin as far as creating and pioneering all of this. I think when you found them, they were all over the place. You've got two like just like an architect slash engineer and like a guy that just knows how to do construction, like just kind of burly tradesmen that have no idea how the whole Facebook ads thing works. They had a Google Ads marketing agency, I believe, a Facebook ads agency, running messenger funnel with just the idea that we throw a salesperson in here and he makes money out of it. And that whole conception is completely wrong. That's what kills most companies. There are some rare instances where it works. I've seen it in cybersecurity where if you have a really just hot demand thing, people will just buy it. You see this probably a lot with influencer marketing. When you have a really warm audience, you can just throw them at a product page with salespeople and they buy stuff. But for like real business, well, not real businesses, but for more established things, it's just not the case. And so working with Fathi, we've been able to actually put together more of an actual funnel and structure. So people bring themselves through a qualification process to be able to raise their hand and show some more specific intent. And beyond that, handing that off to an actual remote closer model where we have a more structured setting and communication process to qualify and get people ready. And so these are the two things that you really have to master. And these are two things that I'd say there's probably an infinite depth to. The remote closer model, not so much. If you've been a salesperson long enough and you understand the gift of gab and communicating, you'll get pretty good at this. And once you figure out management, you can get yourself to a place where you're pretty solid and strong at it. The direct funnel, that's really where the magic happens. For all you guys that want to learn paid ads, it's the marketing portion to the direct funnel that is really the keys to scale, to know how to get people into this in droves. Another example of another industry that doesn't know this, I would say, is Desmond. I think the industry that you're in, you're doing capital raising, I believe, right, for VCs. And so this direct funnel works everywhere and anywhere. It's like people that say webinar funnels don't work, not true. Direct funnel, like all the VSL stuff, not true. Like I know that there's marketing agencies out there that they do capital raising for projects that are 8 million, 100 million, even $1 billion that you can run Facebook ads and get people that are senators, former like famous actors to come through, watch a video, hop on a salesperson and transact. And so Desmond, I mean, you're working in a niche right now where you're that's been your pitch and primary offer and they've been very receptive of that. Yeah, I'd be actually open it up if you kind of want to talk about your experience you've seen with that.
Yeah, absolutely. So for context, this offer is essentially targeted at founders that are trying to raise, $2 million plus in VC funding or directly at the venture capital and private equity funds. I found it to be very resonant. More or less, the funnel here is you have about a 10 to 15 minute long VSL, very similar to like a lot of stuff you see in high ticket. And I think where the resonance comes in at is that it's very targeted and sophisticated towards their specific persona, which a lot of the traditional outbound stuff that's usually used in the industry doesn't resonate quite as much. So you kind of get a lot more high leverage with that.
Yeah, 1000%. And the beauty of the direct funnel is compared to cold email, which works, and cold DM, which works. I just like to, you can pay with your time, or you can pay for your money. Cold outreach, you're paying for your time. Ads, you're paying with your dollars. Once you get a little bit of capital, you realize you just kind of want to throw money at things. And so that's also gives you an infinite level of leverage, because as long as it's profitable, you just keep throwing that money back into the beast and it pays for itself. Our business last year, when we were running our ads, I think all in the year, we spent 60 some odd thousand, and we ended the year with 456,000 in revenue. So for dollar to dollar, $1 in for 7 out over the course of a year. And I don't know anything that produces a better return on that. And all of it was driven by this and a little bit of content marketing. I've been doing more YouTube and Instagram, and but the ROI is very different. Yeah.
So when you say like direct funnel, do you mean like they're seeing like a VSL and then they go to a page to buy it? Like what does that mean?
Yeah, so the direct funnel, let me shrink it. I might wipe some of this stuff after. Yeah, we'll take out a good portion of this. So the direct funnel is any form of, like, you could just call us a traffic source. And I like Facebook. The reason why I like Facebook the most is because I think its algorithm is the most sophisticated, and it's also the fastest for testing. YouTube has really good scale because they just have much more users and they have more data points, but you have to spend a lot more money for Facebook to figure, or for YouTube to figure out how to get it. But this is someone who sees an ad. So you're gonna have a video ad. This could be just an image of a person, or it could also be a video. I usually do the videos. I'll start with images and then eventually graduate to doing videos. This sends them through to a lead capture. This is something that I would say is highly debated. I like to do lead captures where you get name, email, and phone number, simply because I've got people on my team that take care of emails. Most people that come through your funnel aren't going to be ready to buy immediately. They'll buy within 30, 60, 90 days. And so if I can keep sending them emails, they don't forget about me, I advertise to them for free. From that lead capture, we send them to a video page, usually with a prompt to book a call. So a nice little video there of you kind of pitching your product or service to them. They get taken to, there's a button on there that will ask them to book. From there, they schedule a sales call, and you give them the thank you page, where we educate them even more on what the product or service is. The 80-20 to this is going to be what happens right up here and getting people in, and what happens right here before you ask them to buy. If you can get this part to click, what comes below it is pretty easy, and if you can get this part good, it makes the sales calls layups. So, but yeah, that's the direct funnel. Other questions you guys have got? Yeah.
So, on the thank you page, do you always go through more education or next steps?
Always more education. Education more so than next steps. Raise your hand if you've had low show-up rates for an offer. Yep. Low show-up rates, the root cause of that is your customer doesn't understand the value of what you offer, and so they don't understand why they should be there. It's like hosting this event. Because we made the value clear, you guys showed up. But if it was just like, hey, we're hosting an event, people don't show. And where most people go wrong is they think that your customers care about what you have to offer as much as you do, and two, that they understand it as well as you do. So that's almost never the case. One thing that I've learned, I've probably one of the biggest things I've learned about paid ads is how simple your message and ideas have to be. For being good at YouTube and content, for any of you guys that film that, you realize that you have to water down your language a lot to like a 3rd grade reading level. Most people don't understand, like direct funnels, even intense language for someone who has no idea what this is. But anyhow, to answer your question, Joel, around the thank you pages, it's always more education. And you can never stop educating your customers. One thing that we actually played around with that worked well, that another marketer out there has coined, is called the hammer them, where 6 emails a day you send them after they book, between then and their call. Like, you want to own their inbox prior to them showing up to you. Those people who are high intent and are thinking about spending money, I think it's easy to lose perspective too. Like, when you're the high ticket salesperson, you're asking someone for 20K, it's like, it's just another thing, because you see your 500 or 2K that you get as your commission, so it's like, it's nothing to me. But be on the other end of that. Think about trying to spend 5K on something. Like, it's a sizable amount of money. And so if you're actually considering that, you will read it, you will consume it, you will watch it, because you're either trying to find reasons why it fits and it makes sense for you, or it doesn't. And so this is where you'll sometimes irritate people with, or at least I've definitely irritated people with the amount of emails that we send. But people come to the call more aware, they ask me less questions, and are oftentimes are more apt to buy. And this is pretty much all, has anybody sold on an offer that's primarily driven through organic? Yep. So you see the difference and feel the difference on organic as opposed to cold. It's because organic is the content marketing's been done beforehand, before they even saw the offer. And that's why they're so much easier to buy. But when you're doing cold direct and you're taking someone who's heard about you on a Monday and taking a sales call with you on a Wednesday, you have to accelerate that process. And so that's why it's always more education on the thank you page, more so than the prompt for just, hey, confirm the calendar invite. Cool. Great question.
What was the third step?
Video ad, lead capture, like video pitch, or I call it a middle of funnel video, MOF video, and then thank you page with what I call a BOF video, bottom of funnel video. This can range anywhere from, I like to do like 30 to 40 minutes. There's a structure to that. You know, you can be very structured with it, you can be very loose with it, but honestly, you're trying to overcome like the trust to you that they have as a company. So that's where if you tell your story about, you know, yourself as a business owner. I actually dealt with this with the sales consulting. For those of you guys that are new here, it's like when I first launched my ads, my thank you video was just me doing a stick drawing on an iPad. And so on my sales calls, people were like, cool, this sounds nice. I don't know who you are and I don't understand how I get leads. They didn't understand how the whole mechanism worked. So I made a longer video that was an hour and a half. I talked about my story. I didn't talk about how it was you got leads. Then the questions were no longer about me. They got who I was, but they were like, how do I get leads? How do the numbers and math on this work? So I made a third version of that, and each one of these is a bit of an orchestration. Third version was 40 minutes long, where I talked about myself and how you got leads and the math behind how like the whole like offer and how you made money as the business. And that's when the concerns, that's when the calls were pretty much just overcoming fear concerns and like more specific questions around commitment. And that's really the sweet spot as a closer. It's just when someone shows up, look, man, I get it. I'm just afraid to commit to it. That's really where we work best. Cool. Great stuff. Questions you guys have got? Excellent. Okay. So
I actually have a question. So same
Yes.
thing with text, right?
Mhm.
Would you do, like, what's the main difference with text? Because right now my client, we're getting most of it through text message, not email.
yeah, so if you're doing it through text message, you're just going to either drive them to them. Well, if you do it through text message, you're going to try to prompt them as much as you can to get them onto a phone call. So I could draw, there's another version of this too. Obviously, you've got an appointment. You've got an appointment setting team. After you get the name, email, phone number, this is where you remarket to them and work to set them. Try to push them for a phone call. Try to qualify them over DM and text. And if you can get them from that, you know, book them in for the call and then send them the thank you page. And the most important thing that if you're going to do a DM set or if you're going to do a phone set, really hammer them about checking out the value on the thank you page. You could even follow up with them and confirm, hey, if you've been able to see the info that's on the page, confirm that you're showing up for the call. But your thank you page does a lot of the selling after somebody books. This is probably the most important thing to get right in the whole equation. If this is just a, hey, make sure you confirm the calendar invite, people will forget about it. If you've got a really well-made video there with a good like title to it and a good hook, hey, you've been booked in, you know, let's talk about how exactly you can get the result that we just talked about. Before that, you know, I want to explain more about our story and, you know, what you're preparing for or what it is that we're about. If you get this right, that solves or does most of the selling for you. One of our students, Chase, the industrial tree cutting company client that I was working with, he was someone who kind of shadowed and worked with me alongside that. That was actually a client that, you know, I'd worked with him really closely on. This was the place that we got hung up. This was a lesson that I learned very astutely there. When you're asking someone to buy an $80 to $250 million saw that cuts like the largest trees in the world, you know, believe it or not, they need to see videos and photos and customer testimonies before you bring them on a call and say, hey, it costs $250,000, do you want to get financed on this right now or not? So that's one thing that we learned really steeply is that you can never send too much information to them. Once we switched to sending them YouTube videos with our founder, YouTube videos with our customers, see the thing in action. Another thing is we actually had customers that were willing to let people that we had calls with go visit them and see the machine in person. That was another thing. So this is where a lot of your value as a consultant is just really innovating and adding more to this process to make it easier for people to buy. But the name of the game is cold traffic for X amount of dollars to paying customers at the bottom in the tightest time window possible. If you can figure that out, you will never have to worry about making money again. And I've cracked that, maybe not to the extent that I feel like I know people that I compare myself to have, but you could give me anything. I could create an ad for you, I create an ad for you, an opt-in, and I could get people to transact for 5 to 20K in a 7 to 14 day window. And if you can do that, you just make money day in and day out. Cool. Great stuff. Other questions you guys have got?
How long is the duration of the video on the thank you page usually? Like
30 to 40 minutes is kind of the sweet spot that I like, yeah. 45 is probably my favorite. If you go longer than that, people will sometimes tune out. But what you can also do is like, you should do that and then have customer testimonies. Like that's probably one of the biggest things. That's another big thing that I learned this year from a mentor from and above me. Be in the face about social proof. Like for one of the shifts that I made that actually helped a lot with my conversions was I was doing the case study videos with you guys and just like screenshots of like, hey, this is working. I have like a mentor above me that does 9 figures, and he said, bro, you gotta like throw the numbers in people's face and like put like the dollar signs there. So that's when we switched to doing like circling it and doing red arrows and then leading with the headlines, this person made this amount of money. That's all people care about. Like especially if you're selling an opportunity offer, if you have a hard time if you're selling biz op and people aren't converting the way that you like, you're not throwing numbers in their face enough. They need to see like, hey, this is push button dollars that you're gonna make on the other side. The more that you can make your offer that, the higher the odds that people will buy. Cool. Yes.
Can you speak a little bit more tactically to how you think about designing some of the long form videos? Like, I think, like even for me, like on a 15-minute VSO, I just get so hung up on perfectionism. Like, how do you do it?
Yeah, so what to cover in this video is really gonna be determined by how you're getting the traffic to you. The most important piece about getting traffic to you, especially on a paid platform, this is where a lot of people go wrong. There's a lot of debate about whether you should do open targeting, interest targeting. Start with the most narrow scope possible when you're running ads, and the best way to do that is with a call out. So like if you have a specific vertical your product is for, if I was gonna sell a biz op offer, I wouldn't say, hey, do you wanna learn the best way to make money? At least not in the beginning. I would be like, hey, if you're working in IT, the best way to make money is gonna be this. Why? Because you wanna pick a demographic that you know is gonna have money and try to sell them a narrative that they're gonna like and believe. And that actually helps people buy. So if you're capital raising for VC, for example, if you're trying to get accredited investors, don't just say, are you an accredited investor? Because that's like, are you a person with money? Like, yeah, I mean, sure. If you know that your founder has a background, or whoever the VC guy is, maybe he made his money in construction before doing his project. Maybe he made his money in SaaS. So it's like, if you're an accredited investor in tech, we have something for you. That's gonna make all of this more effective, and your middle of funnel video specifically should sell them on the benefits of what investing in you gets. And this is why your call out is so important, because the benefits of that the benefits your audience cares about changes based on that audience. So for example, for high ticket closes, like for me, I tested a way to make an income without taking sales calls, a way to progress your career, a way to just make money while taking sales calls, and there's a couple others. I can't recall them all off the top of my head. But we did a bunch of them, and the one that you guys cared about most was career progression. And so when you care more about career progression, it's about that betterment, empowerment of who you are. And when I changed the narrative, especially the bottom funnel video, to being like, here's my story and how I felt stuck in my career, and here's how I progressed past being a closer into a manager, and then from a manager into a consultant, that made way more sense to you guys than me saying, hey, this is how you can like make money while still doing sales calls, or this is how you can just make more money. So it's those little nuances about what your audience and market believes that really makes or break these things. But for your middle of funnel video, if you're a founder in tech, like the reason why they're investing in you might not be because of the year-over-year advantage. It might be because they get access to the network of people that have invested in this and the customer base and the potential JV opportunities. And so this is why if you're an accredited investor in tech and you want to become part of a fast-growing tech startup, invest with us and you can see our company's growth in real time, and we'll share the insights and advice with you. That's a bigger benefit to spend money with you as opposed to a real estate opportunity or something else. So it's creating and cultivating these narratives specific to what this audience cares about that makes these things rip. But where everybody goes wrong is they're too broad. Like they're just too open. They're selling to everybody. You know, a carpenter buying a biz op is going to have a different set of pain and problems than a doctor buying a biz op is going to have a different set of problem and pains. I'm thinking springs, you know, if you just don't have hair, you don't have hair. So it's like if you're a man without hair, you know, we'll help you fix that. It's a bit different. So, but it varies based on your niche.
So to that point, Kaleb, like for example, like maybe narrowing it from, hey, early stage founders that are trying to raise $2 million in capital to, hey, are you a pre-seed AI founder looking to scale to 100K a month or something like that?
Yeah. Are you an accredited investor thinking about going into AI?
Yeah.
Or are you an investor? Are you new to investing in AI, thinking about investing in AI?
Yeah. It's like capturing a segment within it. Yeah.
Yep, because like if you do accredited investors or whatever the vertical is, it's like you've got accredited investors that are real estate focused, that are alternative asset focused, that are, you know, mutual fund focused. And this is what kills your ad spend, by the way, too. The broader that you are, the more money that you'll waste, because unless you got deep pockets like Deal.ai, where they got $4 a day, $5 a day, they don't care. They'll just dump money at it to get it to work. That's where you can be razor sharp and effective, because if you're very niche with it, Facebook is really good at finding who it's for. So, and I go through that myself. Once I figured out that it was just It used to be salespeople, sales managers, and marketers. Now it's just remote closers, because managers and marketers, like if you're a manager, you care about something different than if you're a marketer. I had marketers come through. Yeah, they think very differently, they behave very differently, and so it's just remote closers. Are you wondering what comes next? Well, I was able to do this as this in X amount of time. If you're interested and want to hear the story, click the link to learn more. That ripped. Cool. Great questions. Others you guys have got? Yes.
Yeah, just share some insight. So like with my offer, the main qualification is, does someone own land, right?
Mhm.
And so what we've done together is, type form, that's the first thing they answer. We don't move anything forward unless they answer that question and get it done.
Mhm.
Even further, if they're an investor, they want to build a bigger property,
Mhm.
that's our ideal focus. And that's what I'm realizing right now. We have a few deals in the funnel where that buyer persona moves way faster than someone buying their first home.
Yep.
Because they're like, I don't know if I want to do this, I'm scared, like, I don't know if I have the funds, I don't want to get approval, the interest rates are high, versus I'm an investor, I know the interest rates are high, they're gonna pay my mortgage anyway, let's rock and roll.
Right.
Right? It's night and day different.
Yeah, so that's a super interesting insight there. And one thing that you'll observe when you do, and this is why I say, like, your greatest skill as a consultant is to understand like these archetypes and people and the marketing piece and knowing how to give that to a remote closer. If you give me as a closer an offer and say, hey, this is the person you're selling to, this is how they're gonna think, and if I'm taking calls with the same type of person day in and day out, it's easy, it's easy. If I'm taking calls with like a mom, a dad, like I can be good at that. But if you really wanna have a team of killers, make it like, okay, you're gonna have guys that are between this age range and this age range are gonna behave this way, and you get really ramped into that. But that's where like your ultimate skill is as that consultant, is to do that. But in Fathi's example, when you run these funnels, you have to have a very sharp eye and intuition for who is someone that my message appeals to that I'm not marketing to that comes through. So exactly that, where it's like, hey, if you own a home in Florida, you've got an investor who sees the benefits of steel homes, that becomes, copy that over. Or potentially scrap the whole market, the first market you're talking to, and open up another segment and just speak to them. For any of you guys that follow Cole Gordon, he does this. I can also do it for my offer. He's got like, we'll give you an appointment setter in 7 days. But then he also has, if you're a real estate coach, we'll help you start a business and get an appointment setter. Or if you're a tax accountant needing more customers, we'll help you get an appointment setter. And so this is ultimately also how companies grow, is you just add more angles to your product line. It's like what Apple did. Hey, if you're a creative person, like we have our Mac computers. If you're an educator, here's the benefit of Mac computers. If you're a business person, here's the advantages of Mac computers. It's the same product sold differently based on what each market thinks. And so you got to be really good at picking these. And once you get one to work, you can do $1 million a month plus just with one offer in one market really well. So this is the supreme skill. Like, that is sales consulting. Because when you get good at that, put some remote closers behind it, like you guys, fucking clean house. So yeah.
How long did it take for you to actually sort of get a grasp of this?
Yeah, I'd say probably a year and a half, 2 years before I got to kind of the competency that I had now. I had to, it was like, there's that meme on Facebook, it's like, just F around and find out. So it was a lot of that, just kind of throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what stuck. I would say though, it wasn't very random, but it was a year and a half. The first barrier to break pass is putting your first money into ads. The moment that you guys play around with media buying and do Facebook and can see, like, I remember it for myself. When I loaded up the FSC ads or the fractional sales consulting ads, like $400 a day, I was like, whew, it's $800 in 2 days, $16K. It's like, I'm spending the money faster than I'm making it. And we got like a 5X in the first month. And it's crazy when you're on the back end of your ads and you can see like, okay, this person saw me like 24 hours prior, is now handing me 5K, 10K. Once you do that a couple times, you understand this is money printing. This is money printing. And so, that's why like I think this program is so valuable. One of the biggest things I take pride in is helping you guys do that for the first time, because it's really uncomfortable to hand Meta $400 a day and you have to let it sit for 3 days sometimes before you see anything. And sometimes it doesn't always work and you have to know how to get it to work. So, but yeah, a lot of testing, but same thing as sales. Took me like 4 or 5 years to figure out sales. Took me a year to get chased from a setter to a closer to a consultant. And so that's like with this, I'm envious of some of you guys coming into it, because like, well, my learning curve was quick, but some of you guys, it's like a couple months and then you get it and then you're cruising. Yeah.
Yeah, similar to what you were talking about, like, because I've been in the high ticket space for the past 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
So would you say someone that is relatively new to the high ticket space could get into something like this and still get a client and still like succeed in a way?
Yes and no.
The hardest piece is the intuition of knowing how to make the judgment calls. Like I talk about, like what Fatih just said, you know, you're able to see that this demographic, like the investors behave differently than the people that own property. You're only going to be able to see those distinctions if you have no anxiety about your ability to sell. And so that's why I recommend you have to master sales first and get to the point where you realize like, oh, it doesn't matter what the offer is. It's, you know, I can sell it. Once you get to that place, you'll have enough headspace to be able to think bigger. So I recommend that you have 2 years of high ticket sales experience or sales experience in general. It doesn't necessarily have to be a clean 2 years, but 2 years of selling to people, probably get yourself over 1,000 sales calls, things of that nature. And a force multiplier, this is a huge one. Do something where you have to do end to end, full cycle, E to E. Our top students and our mid-tier students, this is the thing that breaks people apart, is their ability to do prospecting. Some of you guys are just inbound calendar princesses. You cannot do outbound, do DMs for the life of you. If you can do this and understand end-to-end, like true cold into warm, it just makes you a way better salesperson. It's a chapter that I think everybody should go through. And if you're like an inbound person, go work a cold calling gig for a while and get like smashed for a little bit and then come back to it, and the lessons you learn from it are paramount. Not just for pain's sake, like it's not fun doing full cycle. I've done my fair share of it, but you get a more appreciation of, okay, this is what cold sounds like, this is what warm sounds like. People that only know what warm sound like have such a hard time understanding this and knowing how to like innovate or contribute to it in a meaningful way. Now that you have a general understanding of this, the question is, how do you sell this for companies? How do you start selling these for companies? So I want to talk about some proving offers. It took 80 students and me doing it myself to really be able to boil it down into a pretty tight science as to what makes like our consulting offers. And it's much simpler than I originally thought it was. The ability, the key is your ability to kind of sell it, position it, and help your client see the most value in it as possible. Proven consulting offers. It kind of gets split into 2 categories. OTD, one-time deliverables, and you could just call these services. And I would say this comes to the power of a setup. So a setup is pretty much a one-time deliverable that you might charge a higher price for or do a slightly bigger scope of work. The best one-time deliverables that we've seen that people are willing to pay you money for is setter placement. What I recommend is that you give somebody a setter and you ramp them for 2 weeks and give them 2 setters and ramp them for 2 weeks yourself and let them pick their favorite at the end. Oftentimes, they'll love both of them and not want to get rid of both of them. And if you take care of the ramping of them, they'll usually do better than if they're just left to their own devices. And if those setters actually perform and they get a revenue lift, you can slide them into the services category because they're like, well, we probably like more of that. Next one is closer placement. This works best if you already teach sales or already have a community around it. You can build a whole business around it. We've got Joe who's doing that. Welcome.
You guys.
Welcome. This works great if you already teach sales. I don't recommend that you do like a ramp up period to stick around with a closer. If you're a proficient closer, you can just kind of leave them to their own devices and they're good, they handle their own thing. Next one is going to be scripting and training. This is where you give them a closing script, a setting script, and maybe like a month or so of coaching. And this works great for smaller businesses. You'll have plenty of smaller business owners who might want to be starting in a niche. Prime example would probably in Desmond's example, you might find a VC person who wants to understand how to sell capital raising, or they're a salesperson getting into it, and they need a coach to someone how to show them how to work the leads and be able to get them over the line. So one-time deliverables fall as that. Price points that you can sell these for is anywhere from $1,500 one time to $4K is kind of the cut that we've seen. If you got that once-off super affluent person who loves you, you can do more. But when it comes to pricing, I actually recommend that you kind of underprice a little bit so it's a really good offer for them so they feel more incentivized to get more stuff from you. You want to truly focus on giving them as much value as possible.
Just a question on that. So
Yeah.
we've got scripting, training, one-time fee for how long?
Scripting and training, for about a month, more or less. Yeah, about a month. Yeah, and then after that month, depending on how deeply or how seriously they took it, there's going to be this loss of you in the process. Yeah, and that's where that's ongoing into a service goes. Okay, talk about setups into ongoing services. So ongoing services or setup. Let's talk about the setups, because sometimes people will buy. what I mean by a setup is just a collection of one-time deliverables put together that's more of it's a bigger kind of integration into their business that is going to need to be maintained. So it's like if I give you 2 setters and a closer and scripts, that's a bunch of new stuff that you don't know anything about and people that you don't know. And so you're probably going to need more help beyond a month just maintaining that. That's why you can charge more for setups, or the setups slide into services much easier because there's going to be maintenance that comes with it because you're adding more to the business. So really good one is going to be infrastructure. I think my marker's dying here. Maybe switch colors. Any questions on the one-time deliverables before I go into services? If not, just keep rolling with it. Infrastructure. This is going to include a CRM build. Show of hands, how many of you have come into a terrible CRM before? Yeah, that's a huge value add, you know? So a CRM build. Workflows. And then you can combine these with any of the one-times on the other side. So, hey, I'll rebuild your CRM for the 2 setters. You also might have the setters go in and just, some of these can be like a rigged horse race. Put the setters in, have them complain a lot to the business owner about it, and then they can come back to you and ask for infrastructure. So, you know, play the cards where it's dealt. Doesn't have to be always a fair game. And they need it anyways. Other one is going to be playing the role as a team lead. Team lead / GO, partner, consultant. So this might be actually coming in and doing like a turnaround for them, or like a launch. So I say team lead, growth operator, partner, consultant, doesn't really matter. What we just talked about before in the ads and marketing side of things, you want to be aware of those, but you're just going to focus on the sales front. The key about these one-time deliverables and services is like all of you guys work in sales, so these are the easiest things to do. Sometimes it's just a matter of learning the skills or getting access to setters and closers, and these are things we do provide as part of our program to give you guys setters and closers to be able to sell these and just, hey, here's some people on a silver platter, go give them a job, and then you can take the credit for it. But filling this role, being able to come into a business, and this might be coming in and closing at increased comms, so high comms. Also helping them with the CRM. Also might be replacing yourself with a closer when all is said and done. Also might be doing setters and management. And the recommended prices for these are going to be $5K plus, and you can do rev share or cash. This is actually a new one we just found out recently. Cash bonuses, sometimes business owners have an easier time paying than rev shares. We've got a member of ours right now, Justin, who's working with an offer where he's doing the team lead, sales management, and also a closer. And he gets $220 per sale, regardless of whether it's a paid in full, and he gets them on his sales as well. So if they do 100 sales in a month, what's 100 times 220? Should be better math. I think that's like 22,000 times 220. Yeah, so if they do 100 sales in a month, he gets 22,000, whether he does those sales or not. So this is something that we've actually seen to be pretty lucrative. Business owners like it a little bit more than that rev share, because when they do rev share, they feel like they have to do a little bit more math. They feel like they're giving away at their margins, but it's like, hey, give me $50 per sale, whether I close it or not. Okay, cool. And you'd be shocked. You know, you get some closers cranking. If you're not that involved, it's just cash that comes in that you didn't really have to think about, and the business owner isn't really heated about either.
Caleb, are
Yep.
they paying that on cash collected? Just revenue?
What, the cash bonuses?
Yes.
Yeah. So they're doing that per sale. So it could be a payment plan. It has to be on like a payment plan or a paid in full. It can't be on a deposit. But that's where if the person's on a 3-pay, a 4-pay, a 2-pay, a paid in full, he gets his cash per sale regardless. So if they do 100 sales in a month and they do less revenue, more revenue, he's still getting his 22K when all's said and done. So that's one that we've seen work out pretty well. Cool. Any questions about setups and basic services? Sweet.
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes.
What's the most common setup or service that people want, and which one do people actually do good the most?
Do good at? How do you mean?
Like, I can have all those services, but jack of all trades, master of none.
Yeah, so that's a good question. This one is the easiest for salespeople to fulfill if you don't have a ton of skill. This one is the one that is most bought. And this is probably the harder one to fulfill. So we've got a member, Mikhail, that's been able to do infrastructure builds for 3K. Another one of ours, Larry, as well. He's gotten like 5 people for 4K infrastructure builds where he helps them on the front end. And that's just for come in, clean up your CRM, put some stuff in there for you. He's actually working with the AI setter stuff. I'm not going to talk too much about that because I don't really get it or know it. I don't love it, but I do trust him and his innovations on that. But yeah, he's been doing pretty good off of those. And the people that get these get really good results. And after that, he's got one right now he's working for to bring to $4,000 a month plus a percentage of top line.
Who is that? Who's doing
Larry.
that? Larry.
Yep.
So just to clarify, you're saying that the infrastructure is harder to do, but people want more?
Yep.
And then the other one is easier, but it's not as high as the that. Is that?
Yes, because sometimes they have a team in place, and so depending on the experience, I will say that your ability to sell these is greatly going to be determined by how experienced that business owner is and how big the business is. There's 3 scales to business that I see. There's 0 to the first 30,000 a month, 30 to like 100,000 a month, 100K a month plus. 0 to 30 guys buy this stuff all the time, even 30 to 50. They'll buy this stuff from me pretty easily. The 30 to 50, even 100K guys, they're going to look a lot more towards this. 100K a month guys are going to look a lot more towards like the team lead. And one thing I will say is if you're approaching businesses talking about these, don't get too caught up on your label of what you are. Focus on the outcomes of the value add and transacting. We've had people lose deals because they get too prideful about what their title is going to be. Like, I need to be your fractional consultant. They might not want to call you that. They might just want to call you their sales manager. My client I have right now, I'm the sales consultant for, but sales consultant isn't like a job title people understand. And so he just introduced me to his team as the sales manager. And so it's like, I'm not going to fight him over that. I'm just going to do my piece in private. If he calls me sales manager, I don't care. Like, Elon Musk had a post, CEO is just a title. It doesn't mean anything. Just focus on the outcomes. But yeah, great question.
So thank you for the answer. So that one is more, the one below is more for 100K, and then the one above is more for how much did you say?
People that are 0 to 30 and 30 to 50,000, they buy this stuff a lot. Yep. Especially people that are, well, Fathi's client is kind of, in this go-between because they don't have like a full-fledged, they do have a CRM, but they need this piece built. The reason why this is harder to fulfill, it's not because it's actually harder, but because all of you guys are salespeople and most of my audience is salespeople. Teaching you guys tech is sometimes like teaching a fish to walk. Like, you guys are so good at this stuff, but give you like the tech background and go in there and do some of the automations. It's tricky sometimes, just depending on your skill set. So that's what I will say. Doesn't mean you guys don't learn it, can't learn it, but once you get the gist of it, you do. But to take some of you and put you straight into kind of a team lead, GO part, it's like you guys just smash at that a lot of the time. So yeah. Yeah, Joel.
Just a question on the CRM build.
Yep.
Is there like an industry standard of like how much you charge for something like that?
Not an industry standard. I mean, 5K is a golden price. If you can get someone to let you come in and just like redo their whole CRM for 5K in workflows, it's great. Because the beauty is, and we provide this in the program, we've got it templatized to like a T. I personally don't love Go High Level. That's something we got to like build and develop in I Love Close. Show of hands if you like actually like Go High Level. Okay, that's good. That's good. Show of hands if you know Close, Close.io. Okay, cool. I'm just curious, what's your preference, GHL or Close if you had to pick? Exactly.
It depends if you're a salesperson or an agency.
Yes.
So like, as an agency, I prefer Go High Level.
Go High Level does so much more stuff, and this is where I was like, even I kick around myself with this. Like, I love Go High Level and the idea and the concept. If they could just get that CRM to look and feel like Close, they'd have me in a heartbeat. But because the pages freeze, the leads never load, your texts never send, I have to sign out, sign back in. Okay, I'm not the only one. I spend more time reloading the CRM than I do using it. So that's why I don't like GHL. But GHL is an easy one to do this for. And even for us, it's like the more that you guys do high ticket sales, you realize like I just need like 4 email templates, like the pre-call homework, the post-call follow-up, and then like a no-show. And then for the structure, we've got it. I can pull it up here briefly on my computer. I won't draw it out on the board just because it will take too much time. But we've got a really good wire diagram of exactly what it should look like. The 800,000 to $1 million a month real estate direct mail company was actually the one that kind of helped me pioneer this. But this is what the workflow looks like. Just the most, it's not a ton of moving parts and steps. You might not be able to see it, but that's just like the CRM and sales workflow. There's like 20 different things that need to be put in there. Templatize it, install it in. We want to get it to a point too, like my bigger aim is we're going to be doing this a lot for our clients, but the reason why I still do the consulting myself is because I'm giving back to this program very, very aggressively. And so right now I'm going through the process of figuring out how to turn this even more checklist. But if we have a team that's inside that's killing it, that could be like a done for you thing we put in the back end for you guys. You sign a client, just give them our logins, and we'll just go in there, snap it in for you. And they think you're, God reborn because you did it in a day. Little do you know, you have a team of people behind you. So, but yeah.
When is that gonna be available?
It's gonna take some time. This stuff is coming. Yeah.
How much time?
Yeah. Some people that actually, some partners that I think you might know, Sam Queen. He's someone that is also, this is a whole standalone business. I do know 2 people that are just doing this as a business. Sam Queen at the Close Doctor is just doing this as a business. If he could efficiently add these other things in too, I think he'd be doing way bigger and better numbers. But they're doing just infrastructure for GHL, HubSpot, Close, and pretty much all the CRMs, the sales CRMs. And then another one, Will Autumns, for anybody who's from the Sales Sniper world. Yep, Will's got his own business that he's doing this now too. But they're doing more of the enterprise level, super sophisticated, bigger stuff. They do it for Close, so he's got my, my love for using Close. But yeah, Will's a G. What's second?
Yeah, my question was just gonna be like, the people that you see successful, like doing the infrastructure builds, do they come from a tech background, or they just been around the CRMs long enough?
Yeah, usually have a tech background. Yep, like we've one of our guys, Mikhail. He used to do like freelance web development before he got into high ticket sales. He's been banging these out for $3K. It's nothing for him to just go in there and just kind of go through and see it and do it. But I've also had people that have come from just only inbound sales background or even just like door-to-door sales. This stuff is like, it's trickier for them to learn, but it doesn't mean they can't learn it. So, but yeah, great questions. Yeah, Godwin.
Yeah, the CRM build, is it more like just taking their leads and putting it, like organizing it on a platform that's already made, or is it like literally making software or creating something for them?
Yeah, good question. So if you have somebody that's off platform, meaning that they're just using like DMs, and like a big thing that's being promoted right now is this whole short form funnel and Instagram DM ads. So it's a CRM-less way of doing like info. That bringing them to something like this, it's best when they are not currently using it, as opposed to having to do, working with someone who does have leads. So someone that's new, bringing them this, yeah, that's a huge value add. And the kind of sell to them is like, hey, like you can't really scale at a sales team having everyone work out of your DMs and trying to share your logins for like 4 or 5 people. Like eventually you have to have a place that everybody can show up and do their own bit. For people that have an existing sales, for people that already have an existing CRM, there's kind of 2 parts to it. Best question to ask your client is like, how many iterations to your CRM or your offer have you done? Because I don't know if you guys have seen this or not. I have this in my business. It's been something I've been very mindful of. But usually as the company gets bigger, they'll add more stuff to their CRM over time, like features and custom segments. And so if you're calling through like a lead list, you're going to see these people have a ton of data, these people have no data, these people have completely different data. So asking your client, how many kind of iterations have you done of that? And when did you do them? So that way I can kind of see and segment as such. I think it's honestly easiest sometimes to just pull all the leads out of the CRM in a CSV, rebuild the whole thing, import them all back in, and then update the custom fields with the information that should be there so everybody starts as it should be. And then another level to this, which it's 50-50 whether you want to get involved with it, is Zapier. I mean, my whole operations for my CRM, I think, is like 3 Zaps. But you also know companies that are super complex and they've got a ton of stuff going on. They got 1,000,001 Zaps. And so, but if you know how to, like, if you really can boil this down to a science, and we really try to, 3 Zaps can get your CRM to look properly. All your leads come in real time. You don't have people stepping on each other's toes, and you can just 2x, 3x the efficiency. Sometimes bringing an auto dialer to people is enough to do that as well. Like, there's one offer that I've got a guy right now that's doing mentorship with me who's they're doing the whole do it from your personal phone, and so you got leads coming into GHL, and then you have to pull that out and call it from your phone, use a call recording software. It's madness. So, but yeah, don't let anybody sway you differently, thinking that texting someone on an iPhone is nice, but you can't do 400, 500 dials a day from your iPhone. So, yeah, great questions. Others that you guys have got? Paid ads.
That's like the next.
Yes, I don't recommend that you approach clients with paid ads out the gate, because you're going to get clumped into the paid ads marketing agency, and their expectation of you is very different. I like to fix, like, our biggest gift is the fact that we're good at sales, and so whether they have great marketing or mid-marketing, you can convert it better than someone who has terrible sales. And so that's where if you can start from the inside and clean this up, then bring good ads to it, it's way better to do that than to bring good ads to a messy system because you're going to bleed money out the back end. If you're a marketing agency, your client is staring at you for a ROAS, the return on ad spend. And if this piece is broken, the odds of you getting that ROAS are just going to like plummet. But if this is clean and just like a machine, meaning a lead comes in fully accounted for, called, set in like a tight time window, you know that you're not losing money because the leads aren't accounted for, you're losing money because your marketing sucks. So you want to try to make your job easy by isolating what is broken. Is it the conversion piece? Is it the marketing piece? Sales consultants, if you're high ticket guys, fix the sales piece first because it's easier for you, it's what you know, and it's an easier sell, and there's less of a learning curve than the marketing stuff we talked about earlier.
Okay, so we covered a lot in today's session. We covered how the remote closer model works, how to attract high ticket clients, and real success stories from sales professionals who made the leap. But knowing what's possible is just the first step. The real question is, how do you start, especially if you don't have case studies? Well, that's exactly what we're going to be covering next. You see, in part 2, you're going to learn the best way to position and attract ideal clients, even if you're starting from scratch. We're also going to talk about the only 3 metrics that matter and a step-by-step breakdown of the new school group model to help consultants land their first clients. So if you're serious about making this work, you're not going to want to miss part 2. It'll be linked here or in the description somewhere around this video. I'll see you there.